Hello, good afternoon. Well, at least this afternoon, this my time. Welcome to the discussion online of euthanasia and disability issues for May 23rd, 2014, offered by Toujours Vivant, Not Dead Yet. My name is Amy Hasbrook, and I'm the director of TVNDY. We are a project of the Council of Canadians with Disabilities, and our goal is to unify, inform, and give voice to the disability opposition to assisted suicide, euthanasia, and other practices of ending-of-life practices that tend to discriminate against and have a disproportionate impact on people with disabilities. There are essentially three, there are many reasons why we object to these practices, but sort of to give you an overview, the reasons are, first, that it's unnecessary, that everyone has the option either to commit suicide on their own or to have medical treatment stopped and to have palliative care, even to the point of palliative sedation, so to be sedated and so you won't feel anything. That is an option that's available to everybody. Secondly, we believe that it's discriminatory, that euthanasia and assisted suicide laws have a discriminatory impact, and that's basically because people without disabilities who express a desire to die, whether that's a teenager who's being bullied or a gay person who's been subject to violence or simply dealing with identity issues and having been harassed, those people would be given suicide prevention services if they express a desire to die. But a person with a disability who expresses suicidal feelings would probably be not only encouraged or, at least given understanding in their desire to die, but would also be enabled by such laws. And we believe that that's discriminatory treatment. Thirdly, we believe that as long as people with disabilities do not have a choice of where and how to live, there can be no choice, a real free choice in how to die. And our current social policies do not provide free choice for people with disabilities in terms of their style of life, their revenue, access to public services and public transportation, etc. So we do not enjoy full equality in living. We certainly are not given equality in dying. And finally, we know that from evidence in other jurisdictions where it is legal that safeguards simply do not work. They don't prevent the deaths, unwarranted deaths of people with disabilities. And we know that people are being wrongly killed. So those are the reasons. The goal for our online discussion is to allow people with disabilities to have a forum to talk about these issues from our own perspective. The media covers this issue as a debate between religious people, religious and conservative people on one side, and progressive liberal people on the other. And disability is really not counted in the discussion, even though the disability rights analysis of these questions tends to be more progressive even than the liberal progressive view. So our goal at TVNDY is to create an environment where people with disabilities can talk about the particular issues that are of concern to us, about discrimination, accessibility, treatment in the medical system, and how those relate to the assisted suicide debate. And of course the issue of self-determination and how that works in relation to assisted suicide. There are several ways to participate in our ongoing Friday afternoon conversations. One is to join us via Hangouts on Air, and just before I start, usually within a half hour and sometimes a little more, I send a email blast to people who have expressed interest, and I also I post on TVNDY's Facebook page. I send tweets and I generally try to let people know that this is available. Also, people can go to our website, which is tvndy.ca, and you can participate via there. You can watch the discussion, listen to the discussion, and submit any questions you have via the YouTube. You can go directly to YouTube by searching Disability and Euthanasia on YouTube, and you'll find lots and lots of our previous programs. And if you join us on Hangouts on Air on Google, you can be with us, on video, and so you can talk directly, or you can also use the question and answer function to ask your questions or make your contribution. So we have many ways that you can participate, and hopefully you will do so. For any information about what we talk about here, you can go to our website, which is tvndy.ca, and if you don't find it there, you can contact me directly at tigrlily61@gmail.com, or you can follow my Twitter feed at TVNDY, or you can go to our Facebook page, which is at facebook.com/toujours vivant, not dead yet, all one word. And you can also find our Facebook page from our website, so if you can't remember or can't think of how to spell toujours vivant, not dead yet, you can always go there from our website, which is tvndy.ca. Okay, let us get started with today's topics. Today's topics are zombie apocalypse, Bill 52 is back from the dead, assisted suicide in Vermont 1 year later, frequently asked questions, part 10, oh my gosh, and news brief. We have one news brief. Okay, so starting with the zombie apocalypse, we all knew it was coming, at least this one, and that is that on yesterday, May 22nd, Philippe Couillard's Liberals reintroduced Bill 52 in Quebec's National Assembly via a motion. Monsieur Couillard struck a deal with the other parties to prevent the motion to reintroduce the bill from being blocked. As we talked about earlier, there was a possibility that the motion would be blocked if even one deputy or member of the National Assembly voted against it. But they arranged so that no one would vote against it, and it would come back into the onto the docket. So after the successful maneuver, representatives from the four parties held a press conference to celebrate their success. They announced that the vote would be on the bill would be a free vote, but at this point, since it's all over but the shouting, and we know that it's going to pass, and so even if some people vote against it, the peer pressure is there to push it through, and so it's not much of a help to have a free vote at this point. And Gaëtan Barrette, who was the health minister, said that the members of the National Assembly would have a chance to make a statement about the bill before the vote is taken, though he did not say when the vote would be taken. We know that it will happen before June 13th. It's just a question of exactly when. Apparently, no modifications to the bill are anticipated. And the group Living with Dignity also held a press conference yesterday, and at their conference they announced that they'll be bringing a lawsuit when Bill 52 is adopted, though they did not talk about what legal arguments they'll be using. So we'll wait to see what that is. So of course this was very disappointing news. Obviously our efforts to communicate the disability perspective to the members of the National Assembly were in vain. I appeared at the hearings last fall and stated our case, but the fact that other disability groups in Quebec who had more credibility because they have better established relationships with the government and are more long-standing groups apparently won the day. So this is very discouraging, but you know, we don't give up because we're not dead yet. Anyway, so that's it for that item. Let's see, assisted suicide in Vermont 1 year later. As you may know, the Vermont legislature passed an assisted suicide bill in May of last year. So 1 year later, the law allowing assisted suicide, there remains much confusion as to the provisions of the law and how that's going to be implemented. The assisted suicide advocacy group Compassion and Choices has, who financed the campaign to adopt the bill, has established a chapter in Vermont. And to promote the law, CNC is offering what they call, quote, expert counseling and referral, volunteer bedside support, and education of medical professionals about the law. So they're right in there making sure that everybody who wants to die gets lots of encouragement to do so and gets a referral as quick as possible, etc., etc. The group True Dignity Vermont, which opposes the law, received reports from 2 psychologists already that suicidal clients believed that suicide is now, quote, more acceptable, unquote, because of the assisted suicide law. This is an effect that we have often talked about and are concerned about, and we have a message. Click the select button. Oh, I have a button here. Click select button. Here is a select button. We have a message and somebody saying ciao. No, it doesn't. Ciao. Ciao. Okay. Okay, so that's a message that came in. Anyway, so let's see. The idea that assisted suicide would become, that suicide in general would become more acceptable if assisted suicide laws are passed, this is something that we were afraid of, and this is proof that it happens. Also, True Dignity Vermont, they set up a hotline after the law was passed to help people who might be calling or needed help from being pressured to commit suicide. And they received a call, probably mistaken, from a fellow who, an 85-year-old veteran from New Jersey who wanted to come to Vermont for assisted suicide. He probably called thinking that True Dignity Vermont was a group supporting assisted suicide. So he called wanting to come to Vermont to have assisted suicide. He didn't have any terminal illness or any, you know, specific problem. He was simply very depressed and lonely and isolated. The representative from True Dignity Vermont spoke to the gentleman as long as he wanted and offered to talk whenever he wanted to call back, and also suggested that the fellow seek some professional help for dealing with his depression, which is pretty reasonable reaction, but they have not heard from him since. But you know, this is, again, the issue. These laws are supposed to be for people with terminal illness, and yet this fellow who doesn't have a terminal illness called and, you know, is looking for help to commit suicide. Again, we don't have any information on how many people have contacted the Compassion and Choices folks, but and we don't know for certain. There are conflicting reports as to whether the law has been used. From what I've heard, Compassion and Choices claims they've that one lethal prescription has been filled, but on the other side, I've heard that no, people have died under the law. So it's hard to say exactly what's going on. I'm just going to check over on the other side to see if anybody has offered any questions over in the YouTube chat, and no one has. So I'm going to come back here and watch for questions here. Okay. All right then. Our next segment is our frequently asked questions segment, and we're on part 10. As I've mentioned in other sessions, during the Massachusetts referendum campaign, we received many questions, and there were a number of questions that came to us over and over again, and we wanted to make a resource so that people could have ready answers to some of these questions that often came in. And so we developed a frequently asked questions document, which is fairly long because there are a lot of questions that people have. And I've been going through those questions, but they are all available on our website. So please feel free to go to tvndy.ca and look at our frequently asked questions section. So continuing with part 10, we have the question that we know that assisted suicide already happens. If we don't regulate it, won't we end up with a macabre specialty of assisted suicide with no safeguards at all? And the answer is that this specialty already exists, and that legalization has done nothing to stop it. And as I mentioned earlier, safeguards are not effective. So, for example, as we already mentioned, 75% of deaths in Oregon are guided by people from Compassion and Choices, who refer people to doctors based on the doctor's willingness to prescribe the lethal drugs, not the doctor's relationship with the patient, nor their competence or compassion. So, and we also know in Oregon that there's what we call doctor shopping. So if someone goes to their family physician and says, I want assisted suicide, and the family doctor says, no, you're not qualified. You don't have a terminal illness, or you are being influenced by your family, as was a woman named Kate Cheney, the person or the family will take the person to another doctor who is more likely to be sympathetic. And this is what happens when doctors make a practice of doing euthanasia. They'll be a little less strict with the criteria, and this has happened quite often, that people do this doctor shopping. And when you've got Compassion and Choices available to refer you to those doctors who are willing to do the assisted suicide, it's one less step. And in the case of Kate Cheney, she was an elderly woman who had some dementia, and her family doctor, and even the doctor who signed off on her assisted suicide, were concerned that her daughter was the person who was pushing for the assisted suicide. But it wasn't, she went doctor shopping, or her daughter went doctor shopping, and it didn't save her. So, well, oh well, too bad. In Belgium, Dr. Wim de Stelman, who we talked about last week, performs a large percentage of the euthanasias in that country, even as he holds the position of chair of the Commission on Evaluation and Control of Euthanasia. So is that a conflict of interest, or what? So this guy is out there doing euthanasias, and yet he's supposed to be controlling the practice. It's a little funky. The Final Exit Network has faced criminal charges in situations where what they call exit guides hold people's hands down to prevent them from tearing the plastic bag off their head to save their own lives. So the procedure they use generally is that person puts a plastic bag over their head and has helium pumped into the bag. And if they start to struggle, the quote-unquote exit guide, the person who's sitting there, will hold the person's hands down. So if the person decides at the last minute they want to change their mind, they can't, because somebody's holding their hands and they can't move. So that's assisted suicide, according to the Final Exit Network. The Dignitas Clinic in Switzerland will help pretty much anyone from pretty much anywhere kill themselves. That's fairly well known. The Dutch government provides mobile euthanasia units to make house calls. So whether you can get home care to help you live well and independently, you can certainly get home, you can certainly get door-to-door service house calls to help you die. And this again is an issue for people with disabilities who need assistance at home. Can't always get it. The services are not always there, but they're willing to come to your house to kill you. So that's kind of screwy. And finally, the Farewell Foundation specifically cites suffering as a result of disability, unquote, as a reason for suicide. So we're talking about this idea of a macabre specialty that focuses on, disability. These are several examples of how that actually happens in real life. Okay, so the next idea is, the next question to respond to is this. These suicide requests do not arise from mental illness. They are fully informed, competent people who are not under anyone's control or influence, who are making a rational choice to avoid torturous pain and suffering. Shouldn't we treat them differently from those with mental illness? This is a claim that's being made by people who support assisted suicide. Oh, what's this? Oh, this is very screwy. I can't get my text. Okay. Damn. Okay. What are you doing? Hold on just a sec. I'm having a little trouble with my adjuster. Okay. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble with my text. I want to read from. Okay. Okay, the idea of rational suicide has been promoted by a very small but vocal group of psychologists, but has not been accepted by the mainstream of psychology. If you did a search on the idea of rational suicide and the American Psychological Association to see about how much it's accepted, you found 27 articles, but almost half of them were written by one or two of the following authors, either James Worth or James Rogers. Either one or both wrote almost half of those articles. So there's a small group of people pushing this idea of rational suicide. Let's see. The latest version of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is DSM-5, it's the basic Bible of mental illness in the United States by the American Psychological Association. Their assessment for suicide factors in whether the person has a disabling condition. That's one potential cause for suicidal thoughts. In other words, the presence of a disabling condition is a reason to offer suicide prevention services. Okay, so that's another important thing to keep in mind. I'm doing the wrong thing there. I hope that's working. Sorry. Okay. Also, there are a lot of social factors that can affect this. Can cause suicidal feelings such as isolation, bullying, poverty, devaluation by society, institutionalization, identity issues, cultural and language deprivation, substance abuse, and other issues. All of these are all associated with discrimination based on disabilities, as well as for groups like people, First Nations people, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people, and veterans and other disenfranchised groups. So these are all social factors that are they're not the person's disability. These are social things that happen to people with disabilities that can cause suicidal feelings. So it's, you know, we're questioning whether these are rational suicides, and these are all things that people with disabilities face on a daily basis. So can you really think that a person who has suicidal feelings, who's facing all this stuff, is thinking of a rational suicide? People with disabilities and elders are also subject to very high rates of abuse and domestic violence, which are also factors that relate to suicide. Let's see, I'm just trying to read my notes and they're all kind of screwed up here. Let's see. Requests for assisted suicide found that the reason given by people who were asking for it were the same as those by non-disabled people. So when someone with a disability said, I want to die, and someone probed into those reasons, it turns out that they were the same kind of reasons that are given by people without disabilities who say, I want to die. And when those disabled people who wanted to die were given the same suicide prevention services and assistance that people without disabilities get, voila, they had the same positive reaction. They felt better, their mood improved, their outlook improved, they were less likely to want to die. So that's another thing to keep in mind. People with disabilities don't have a choice about where to live, and so the idea, or how they live, and so the idea of that they have a choice to die is an illusion. And it's not that people with disabilities are incapable of making a choice. It's not that they can't make a choice, or they aren't smart enough or whatever enough to make a choice. It's that they're not given any choices to make. They don't have any realistic choices to make. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, one news brief. That's the end of the frequently asked questions for this week. There will be more next week. One news brief we have today, which is that the manufacturers of the drug pentobarbital, which is used for both assisted suicides and for executions of criminals in the United States. Those manufacturers are mostly in Europe, and they've placed an embargo on sales of the medication or sales of the drug to the U.S. because it's used for the lethal injections. Oregon has now run out of the drug and is looking for another source. And so the group, Compassion and Choices, is coming to the rescue and wants to establish itself as the pharmaceutical manufacturer. So they're asking permission of the state of Oregon to basically get a license to make the drug to kill people. And so basically the idea now would be that the same group that financed and wrote the law, financed the campaign to adopt the law, that guides 75% of the people who die under the law, now wants to be the one that provides the drug to do the deed. So, basically they have a monopoly, or they want a monopoly on this process. And it's a pretty morbid idea. One-stop shopping in the worst way possible. So that's just something to keep in mind. All right, so how to reach us. There are a lot of ways to reach us. I'm going to just go check and see if there are any questions on the... No, there are no questions from the other chat. All right. So there are a lot of ways to contact us. First and foremost is via our website, which is tvndy.ca. I am just looking to see if there's another comment here. I do not see any comments. Is that done? I'm done with that. Okay. Oops. All right. Okay. So I'm just seeing. see. If you want to learn more about these issues or just want to learn about the organization, if you want to link to our Facebook page, go to our website, which is tvndy.ca. You can also go directly to our Facebook page at facebook.com/toujours vivant not dead yet. You can follow me on Twitter, which is TVNDY. Actually, it's @TVNDY. Or you can email me directly at tigrlily61@gmail.com. And if you want to watch any of the previous online discussions, you can go to our website, select the Events tab, and then select the date on the calendar that you want to watch for. We started the discussions in September. That went through the beginning of November, then we took a break, and we started again in January, so we've been doing discussions again since from January to June. And there is a lot of material, and certainly there's also a lot of material on our website. There are articles and videos and all kinds of good stuff. So please feel free to inform yourself about this issue. There is, you can answer your questions, you can participate in our conversations and ask questions. We certainly welcome more participation because it's supposed to be an online discussion, so if it's just me yakking, it isn't much of a discussion. Right, so thank you very much for joining us and for watching today, and I invite you to come back next Friday at the same time, at the same station, and I hope you have a great week in between. Thanks, and hope you stay not dead yet. Take care. Goodbye.